All right. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever it is in your timeline, we want to say welcome to the online edition of The Gathering. My name is Nick, and thanks for stopping by and hanging out with us for a little bit today. It's a beautiful weekend again in the Pacific Northwest. Hopefully you're enjoying that, and whenever you're having a chance to engage with this, we just want to say thanks for hanging out with us a little bit. Now, if you want to get to know us a little bit better, you're interested in finding out some more information about who this group is, you can go to our website at everettgathering.com and you can learn a little bit about us there. This is actually a partnership of two different churches who, well, started out individually, but they are kind of just becoming one church together. We're in the process of that, and it's been a beautiful experiment of bringing people together from different backgrounds and traditions and learning how to love and appreciate one another and our traditions. And so we want to welcome you into that. And if you want to learn more about it, you can read our core values and all the stuff that kind of brings us together there online on the website. Now, the way that we usually kind of introduce ourselves, if you're unfamiliar with us, is with two words. Of course, you can read all the words that are put on a website, but maybe these two words would kind of give you a little bit of a flavor of who we are as a group. The first word is cautious. When it comes to organized religion, we're sort of a cautious group. I mean, many of us grew up around religion, and we've seen religion used in ways that's obviously helpful, beneficial, positive, even inspiring. Religion can be a beautiful thing, but many of us have also seen religion, especially organized religion, used in ways that's actually kind of toxic and harmful, hurtful, exclusionary. And some of us personally, or people that we know and love and care about, have been harmed by organized religion. And so we find ourselves just a little cautious about organized religion, which on the one hand seems sort of strange. I mean, as a church, we are by definition an organized group of religious folk, but we think that there's really something in the tension there that might be quite healthy. If we are going to be an organized group of religious people, we want to be a little cautious about organized religion as well, because we know how quickly it can go off the tracks. Now, the other word we use to describe ourselves is the word curious. And by that, we do, of course, mean that we like to ask a lot of questions, but really what we're trying to identify here is sort of a posture of humility that we like to have in this group, which is that basically we admit we don't have all the answers to everything. I don't, you don't, and we need to learn from one another. And so we try to practice being unusually curious about the people that come into our life. And so maybe there's something that you have to learn from people in this group, but it could be that there's things that you know that people in this group need to learn from you. And so we want to always be curious about things. Particularly, we found in our group being curious about things that maybe we haven't been historically curious about. There's probably ways of thinking and believing that have been handed down to us that we've maybe never critically examined. In fact, we didn't even bother to ask the questions because we thought we already had the answer in those areas. But we have discovered that that's really where most of our blind spots hide. So we spend a lot of time not asking questions about things we don't have the answers to, although that's perfectly valid. We spend a lot of time asking questions about things maybe we thought we had answers to. And along the way, sometimes we end up discovering that there are some alternative ways of thinking and believing that are also faithful to Jesus, but might actually fit better with our context today. Okay, so those are the two words that we use to kind of describe ourselves, and if either of them seem to make sense to you or pique your curiosity, then I'd say maybe this is a group to continue to check out a little bit more. Now, what we're going to be doing here over the next few moments is sort of a miniaturized version of our in-person gatherings. In person, we sing multiple songs, we have some video pieces, and we do all sorts of different things, some more formal liturgical elements, some less formal things. But here in the online space, we kind of compress it into one a shorter, condensed little version of it. So we have one song that our worship leader, Billy's going to come on the screen and lead here in a moment. If you'd like to sing along with it, that's fine, or just have it as background music, that's great. And then after that concludes, I'm going to come back on the screen, and we are doing a series through the book of Esther right now. And so we're going to jump into chapter 3, which is actually one of the more exciting chapters. It's the chapter that everybody waits for when they're reading the book at Purim. And so we're going to read that chapter here today. And then we're going to finish the whole thing out really with communion. So in our in-person gatherings, we take communion together as a group each week. And if you're with us in person, we provide everything you need for that, the bread and the cup. Here in the online space, we're going to carve out a moment for you to take communion if you would like to. And whatever time you're doing it, you're likely doing it with Christians all over the world, so you're never truly alone as you do it. But if you want to participate in it, you'll need to get a couple items on hand. You'll need something for the bread, which could be, I don't know, a little cracker or a little piece of bread even. And you'll need something for the cup, which could be a little bit of juice, or maybe you've got some wine left over from last night's dinner. Break that out. You just need a little bit, and you can take communion today if you would like to do that. And then we'll wrap up the whole thing with some announcements. Okay, let's just jump right into it. Billy's going to lead us in a song, and there's a little reflective video actually in between that, and then I'll come back on the screen, and we'll jump into chapter 3 on Esther. All right, let's get to it. Billy, take it away.
Let praise be a weapon that silences the enemy. Let praise be a weapon that conquers all anxiety. Let it rise. Let praise arise. Sing your name in the dark and it changes everything. Sing with all we are and proclaim your victory. Let it rise. Let praise arise. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. Fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side. Forever lift him high. With all creation cry, God, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, let faith be a song that overcomes the raging sea. Let faith be a song that calms the storm inside of me. Let it rise. Let faith arise. Let it rise. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. Fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side. Forever lift him high. With all creation cry, God, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, this is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise you. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise you. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise you. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. Fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side. Forever lift him high. With all creation cry, God, we praise you. We'll see you bring down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. Fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side. Forever lift him high. With all creation cry, God, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh,
All right, well, it's summer. Hopefully you guys have settled into it and are enjoying the weather. It's been pretty beautiful. I mean, we've had a little rain here or there, but that's what keeps it green. And frankly, I'm really happy when it rains because it means I don't have to water my yard for a couple days, and I really appreciate that. So another thing about summer that's great, though, is obviously, many families have a little extra time on their hand. Kids aren't in school, so they're trying to figure out what to do, and my son in particular has been trying to figure out what to do, and so we've been spending some time together this summer, sleeping in the trailer, playing badminton outside, doing a bunch of different stuff. Recently, we decided it'd be kind of fun to stay up late and watch some old movies. And so this last week, we watched the old Star Wars movie Rogue One, which I say old. It's about 10 years old at this point, which is hard to believe. But Rogue One is one of my favorite of the Star Wars movies, and we were watching it this week. And right at the end, there's this scene where the villain of Star Wars, Darth Vader, appears. And it's just him in a dark room, in a hallway actually, and then his saber lights up red, and then it highlights red throughout the room. And I mean, it is just the grandest of entrances for a villain. I mean, it's just fantastic scene as Darth Vader makes his presence known in the prequel movie, Rogue One. And it got me thinking about villains. There's a lot of really good villains out there, right? In movies and TV. I mean, Disney has so many good villains. Disney even made a whole board game out of just their villains, right? I mean, there are just some really good villains out there, and some of the villains in stories are the most compelling characters. Well, today in our series, we actually want to meet our big villain. Chapter 3 is the big reveal of who the villain of the story is. Now, we're doing a series here called the Esther Scroll, and we're studying this fascinating story in the Bible that never mentions God's name at all. I mean, God isn't present in this book at all. He's not mentioned, he's not referred to, no one prays to him, but somehow this story still found its way into our Bible. And I don't know about you, but even though it's a story that doesn't mention God's name, it's been causing me to think a lot about God and what it means to live in the pattern of God each week as we go through it. He's never mentioned, and yet it's amazing how we might start thinking about what it means to follow God in the midst of this story. So today, I'm hoping that we'll discover a little bit more of that as we enter into chapter 3. Now, chapter 3 is an exciting chapter. It's the chapter that everybody waits for. Now, this story, Esther, the Esther Megillah, the Esther Scroll, is read every year out loud at Purim festivals. And Purim is a Jewish festival, and they read this story once in the evening and once in the morning on Purim. And when they read together this story, everyone is waiting for chapter 3, especially the kids, because it's in chapter 3 that you meet the big bad villain, Haman, or Haman, all right? We're going to meet our villain here today in chapter 3, and what's so fun about that is in Jewish tradition, when you read the Esther Megillah, every time Haman's name is mentioned, you are supposed to boo, hiss, and make all sorts of noises, right? They even have these rattles and these things called groggers that they spin around that are loud noise makers. And so as the text is being read, every time Haman's name is said, you're to boo and to hiss. And the whole idea is you're trying to blot out the name of Haman. You're trying to eliminate him, right? Because he's the villain. And so you're trying to make all this noise to drown out his name. And so it's what makes the story fun as it's being read. So I don't know. You're at home today, or maybe you are. If you're at work and there's a bunch of people around and it's just odd, maybe don't do this. But if you want to, as I read the story along, every time we come to Haman's name, you can boo and hiss. And in our in-person gatherings, it's going to be crazy. They've got all sorts of noisemakers, and they're going to be booing and hissing. So however you want to do that online, you're welcome to participate in it as well. So get your boo machine out. All right, we're going to read the text. And if you want to participate, you're welcome to that. So let's read the first couple verses here of chapter 3. After these events, King Xerxes honored Haman. Oh, are you booing? I can't tell. King Xerxes honored Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, elevating him and giving him a seat of honor higher than that of all the other nobles. All the royal officials at the king's gate knelt down and paid honor to Haman, for the king had commanded this concerning him. But Mordecai would not kneel down or pay him honor. Now, this chapter is going to introduce us to our villain, Haman. And right at the beginning here, we discover this guy has been elevated to a position of power by King Xerxes. And so he is being honored by everyone who is falling down and bowing in his presence, but we'll soon discover that he is a villain also. And Haman does plenty of bad things in this story, but there's really more to boo in this chapter than just Haman. For sure, he's the villain, and it's fun to boo him. But there's a lot in this chapter that we might discover that's pretty unsavory outside of just Haman himself. There's an attitude of pride, self-centeredness, and prejudice, demonization of others, that soaks this chapter in the conflict that is going to be the major problem throughout the rest of this story. Pride often leads to prejudice. And we're going to see that right here in this ancient story. And so as we read through it, I'd like to point out a few things that are worth booing in this story. And the first is this, that personal pride often won't acknowledge the success of others. Now we're going to be introduced to the main conflict, the crisis that is going to create this story. And all of it really starts, it appears, because one person can't get over how they've been slighted. Haman is elevated in position, and Mordecai will not acknowledge it. Verse 3, the royal officials then at the king's gate asked Mordecai, "Why do you disobey the king's command to bow before Haman?" And day after day they spoke to him, but he refused to comply. Therefore they told Haman about it, to see whether Mordecai's behavior would be tolerated, for he had told them he was a Jew. Now, what we learned really in verse 1 is that this chapter, it starts with a timestamp. I don't know if you saw that there in verse 1. It says, after these events. So it tells us here that something is happening later. And we discover by verse 7 that this is actually 5 years later. And what you learn there in verse 1, it says, after these things happen, we discover that there's something that's happened from the last events that we just saw in chapter 2. And if you missed that, the big highlight at the end of it is that Esther ends up becoming the new queen. And right at the end of that chapter, there's this weird little story about Mordecai. And Mordecai overhears a plot to have King Xerxes assassinated, and he brings it to the king's attention and thus saves the king's life. And it seems like he'd be honored for doing that. I mean, if you save someone's life, it seems like you might get a thank you, or some sort of honor. But it appears that that has never happened. And this has now been some time later, even 5 years goes by, and he has never been honored. But what's worse is not just that he hasn't been honored, but now he looks around and he sees someone else being honored instead of him. And it's this villain that we've met named Haman. And that hurts maybe even worse. Because sometimes that happens, doesn't it? You deserve honor for something, but someone else gets it instead. And it hurts your pride, doesn't it? And it could be why Mordecai won't bow down to Haman. Now, some have said that Mordecai can't bow down for religious reasons. And it does say in verse 4 that he was a Jew. It points that out. But most scholars believe that that's probably not the reason that Mordecai isn't bowing down here. Now, clearly we have other Old Testament stories, right, where people don't bow down to graven images and stuff out of respect for Yahweh because they're not bowing down to some other foreign god of some kind. But that's not exactly what's going on here. This is just an official, and he's being asked not to worship him as deity, but just to bow down in respect to a king or to a ruler. And there's nothing in the Old Testament law that says you can't bow down to a king or to some other authority. And so it's unlikely that Mordecai is refusing to bow down out of some religious reasons. It's more likely for personal reasons. Mordecai's been slighted, and he's seen Haman then elevated, and it grates on him. And so he refuses to bow down. Now, pride does that, doesn't it? It can keep you from acknowledging another person's success. It's what the kids today call being a hater. you're going to be a hater. Hater's going to hate, right? I mean, it's just the idea that you can't be happy for someone else because their success didn't happen to you. And so you're going to hate on them because you don't get to experience what they're experiencing. It's being a hater. And you can live life like that, but you're going to live life in a very angry state if you live that way. Now, that could be part of what's going on here, but it could be there's something else going on as well. Verse 5 says, when Haman saw that Mordecai would not kneel down or pay him honor, he was enraged. Yet having learned who Mordecai's people were, he scorned the idea of killing only Mordecai. Instead, Haman looked for a way to destroy all of Mordecai's people, the Jews, throughout the whole kingdom of Xerxes. Wow! I mean, that's a lot going on there. I mean, Haman here says, you're not going to bow down to me, then I'm going to wipe out not just you, but all of your people. I mean, that seems like a little bit of an overreaction, don't you think? I mean, that's a little overkill. This guy won't bow down to you, so you're going to kill him, his whole family, and all of his people group, his entire ethnicity? I mean, it seems like you're going overboard here a little bit. I mean, you think genocide is the response to this insult that this guy has given you? I mean, it seems a little overreactionary. And yet, conflict is often like that. There's usually a history. There's usually more going on behind the scenes. And so overreactions happen in conflict, in part because there's something more below the surface. And in this case, there really is. Now, last week, you remember I told you Mordecai, when we met him, an important detail about his life is that he was the son of Kish. You remember that? The son of Kish. And I said, file that in the back of your head because that's going to be important later, right? So now I want to tell you why that's important. Mordecai is the son of Kish. At least metaphorically. What this probably means is he's from the line of Kish. Now, there was a real son of Kish, and his name was King Saul. He was the first king of Israel. And Mordecai, the story is telling us, is related to King Saul. He is related to King Saul's father, Kish. Now, King Saul lived during the time of another king, a king named Agag, king of the Amalekites. And the Amalekites were the arch enemies of Israel. And like all conflicts, there's a long history of wrongdoing on both sides. Now, you can read the story of how they became the arch enemies of Israel really in Exodus chapter 17. And the Cliff Notes version is that Israel, remember, has escaped the bondage of Egypt, and now they have wandered around the desert for like 40 years, and they're about to enter into the land that they see as promised to them. And as they're about to enter into it, they are attacked by the Amalekites in an unprovoked, the text says, attack. The Amalekites are apparently afraid of the political and military might of these Israelites, and so they create a preemptive strike in order to hit them before they're established enough to really establish dominance in the land. And so this unprovoked attack comes, and Moses, you remember, helps lead the charge against them. And at a certain point in Exodus 17, you can read the story, as the battle is going on, Moses has to hold up his hands, and as long as he holds up his hands, Israel wins the battle. And ultimately, Israel does win the battle, and we get this interesting verse here at the end of the story, verse 15 and 16 of Exodus 17. Moses built an altar and called it, "The Lord is my banner." And he said, because hands were lifted up against the throne of the Lord will be at war against the Amalekites from generation to generation. Wow. So here we have a war and an enmity with the Amalekites that is going to last for generations. Now, later, we see in 1 Samuel, King Saul again, and God instructs him to actually wipe out all of the Amalekites as retribution for what happened in Exodus 17. The instruction is to put to death all the men, women, and children, commit genocide, wipe them all out. And it's one of those really difficult passages in the Old Testament that we have to deal with as Christians. And we've talked about that one before, and I'm sure we'll talk about it again. But the point for today is that there are they are called to commit genocide. And Saul does it to a point, but he refuses to go all the way, and he spares the life of Agag, King Agag, the king of the Amalekites. And Samuel, the prophet, rebukes him for it and has Agag killed himself. But this is not the end. Apparently, King Saul does not wipe out all the Amalekites, because throughout the next king's life, David, there are multiple skirmishes back and forth between the Amalekites and Israel. And the Amalekites become like the poster child for the enemy of God and the enemy of Israel. And so Haman, we learn here, is an Agagite. He's an Amalekite. And Mordecai is a son of Kish. He is an Israelite. These are generational enemies. Genocide is just what they do to one another. They each hate each other because of the past and the past wrongs, the wrongs done in the past. Which leads us to another interesting insight in this chapter. The generational pride often poisons today with the hate of the past. You ever notice that? That pride from the past or wrongs that have been done in the past can affect the present. And this whole story is going to take place, the crisis of this story is going to happen, because two people can't get over what happened in the past. They can't move beyond it. They can't make amends. There's too much pride on the line. And that would never happen to us today, would it? I mean, that's a great story from the ancient world, but we'd never have that kind of problem today, would we? Now, you know we would. It happens to us all the time, where we end up dwelling on a hurt in a hurt relationship or a slight from the past, and we just keep a hold of it and we won't let it go, even when it's hurting the relationships we have in the present. It happens all the time. It's as relevant today as it could ever be. And we see it on the global stage, right? I mean, we see countries and nations and ethnicities warring with one another back and forth. And yes, they did this to us and we did this to them. And we don't even know who started all at this point. It's just been generations of warfare after warfare, responding to the wrongs of the other, and just a spiral of violence and retribution. But it's not just like on a global scale. I mean, it happens personally too, doesn't it? I mean, because you probably got some relationships in your life and someone hurt you in the past. And you might be thinking, yeah, but they hurt me first. They're the ones that need to come and apologize to me first. And maybe so. But often those hurts from the past, we allow to poison our relationships in the present. And what's so sad about this story is that there are so many innocent people who are going to be in jeopardy because of this generational hate. And it's that generational hate that's what leads to genocide and human atrocities. The root of it is right here in this story. You tried to wipe out my people? Well, we're going to wipe out yours. And hate just keeps escalating. Hate. Now, what's really sad is when we try to divinely sanction our hate and get God on our side, and that's kind of Haman's next move here. And we like to do that as people. It's not enough for us to hate another group of people. We want God to take our side on it. And so we want to somehow see that God would be with us in the way that we want to respond to our enemies. And we see that here in verse 7. In the 12th year of King Xerxes, in the first month, the month of Nisan, the pur, that is the lot, was cast in the presence of Haman to select a day and month, and the lot fell on the 12th month, the month of Adar. Now, Haman here, he is going to try and choose a date for which he can wipe out all of the Jews. And so what he does here is he casts lots. Now, the text here mentions the pur, and the pur is really a Persian form of dice. It's like a die, right? The pur is the singular version. The plural would be purim. If you had two dice, it would be Purim, and that's where the name of the festival comes from. And so Haman here is going to cast lots. He's going to roll the dice to determine the day that he is going to wipe out the Jews. And what he's doing here is he's not just playing a dice game, okay? He's trying He's asking for divine appointment to what he's doing. He's wanting the gods or God or some sort of divinity or fate itself to be on his side. And so he wants to choose the right day when the deity or fate itself will join him in commissioning him in being on his side to wipe out the Jews. He wants to get God on his side. And this is sort of religion at its most dangerous, isn't it? When it makes a holy war out of conflict. But hate doesn't usually just want God on its side. It also wants the king on its side, right? Verse 8, then Haman said to King Xerxes, there is a certain people dispersed among the peoples in all the province of your kingdom who keep themselves separate. Their customs are different from those of all other people, and they do not obey the king's laws. It is not in the king's best interests to tolerate them. Now, notice something important here in this text. We see something else that perhaps we should have a cautionary view of, and that is that pride and prejudice justifies itself through exaggeration and lies. And that's what Haman is going to do here. He wants the king on his side, not just God on his side. He wants someone in authority, someone else to rally around his hatred. And so the way you try to get those people on board is you might have to say something about your enemy that would rile them up and get them all stirred up and afraid of them so they would join your cause as well. And so often, pride and prejudice will use exaggeration and even outright lies to sort of tell untruths and lies about these people in order to drum up enough fear that people will join them in their mission of hate. And so just look here back again at verse 8 and notice all the exaggerations that Haman wants to say here about the Jewish people. He says they live in all the provinces. I mean, they're just dispersed all throughout the land. In other words, they're everywhere. I mean, there's just too much of their population here. What are we supposed to do? We got all these foreigners in here, and you better watch out. They're throughout your whole land, king. He's trying to make them seem like a bigger threat than what they are. And notice he also mentions that their customs and their laws are different from those of other people. He wants to highlight their strangeness. These people are different. They don't value what we value. And then he says here, not only do they have different customs, but they don't obey the king's laws. They're not good citizens. They're not law-abiding. They're offenders. We need law and order, is what he says. We need some law and order around here. And that phrase, of course, has commonly been used historically as a way to malign others. And also, it appears in this story to be outright deception. No one is lawless. We just have one man who refuses to bow down. And so now, Haman is going to exaggerate that all Jews are unsubmissive to authority because one man, Mordecai, refuses to bow down. And then, of course, at the very end, his final pitch here is that, well, you know what, king? It's just not in your best interest even to tolerate these people or to let them live. He's appealing here at the very end to the king's favorite aspect, his own comfort. He says, you know what, king? Not only is this not good for the country, it's not good for you. He's using exaggeration and lies to get the king scared enough, fearful enough of these people that he will join his cause of hate. It's good caution there. Whenever you have to start exaggerating claims about other people or outright lying about them, you're probably on the wrong side. But if lying and exaggeration doesn't work, you could always resort to bribery. And that is Haman's next ploy. Verse 9, if it pleases the king, let a decree be issued to destroy them. And I will give 10,000 talents of silver to the king's administrators for the royal treasury. So the king took his signet ring from his finger and gave it to Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews. Keep the money, the king said to Haman, and do with the people as you please. Now, Haman here is going to offer him a large sum of money. And we're not exactly sure how much it is, 10,000 talents of silver. We're not sure how much that is exactly at that time, but it appears to be a very substantial amount of money. It's a big bribe. And you have to wonder, where did Haman get all the money for this? And someone said, well, Haman is probably a wealthy individual. It's probably how he ascended to this place of prominence anyway. He may not have done anything as important like as Mordecai did in saving the king. He may not deserve the promotion. It may be that he bought his way into this position, and so he bribed his way into the position, and now he's going to bribe his way into this thing he wants to do. It could be. But others have said, this is such a large sum of money that perhaps Haman doesn't even have access to it. Perhaps his plan is just to take the resources of the Jewish people he tends to exterminate them, and then whatever resources they have become his, and then give it to the king. In other words, he's saying, let's do this. I can wipe out these people, and you'll get all their wealth. Now, that one seems more likely to me. But if you read your Bible there in those last verses we read, it sort of seems like Haman turns down the bribe. But does that sound like Haman to you? I mean, does that sound like Xerxes to you? I mean, we've gotten to know King Xerxes a little bit here over the last couple of weeks. He's a guy that's very foolish. He's very arrogant. He's very selfish. He doesn't care about anyone but himself. I mean, he's the type of guy that probably enjoys a good bribe, right? I mean, he's the type of guy that seems like he would accept a bribe. But in verse 11, right, we have it saying, keep the money, the king said, and do with the people as you please. And so it sounds like Xerxes is turning down the bribe. But in Hebrew, the phrase is literally, the money is yours, the people are yours. And so this Hebrew idiom, a lot of English translators say, keep the money and do what you want with the people. But really, the Hebrew just says the money is yours, the people are yours. And this is a Hebrew idiom then that could mean, well, it's your money. And if you want to spend it on destroying these people, then go ahead and do it. In other words, it may be that the king is accepting this bribe. And I think that's likely too. Either way, the edict goes out. So on the 13th day of the first month, the royal secretaries were summoned. They wrote out in the script of each province and in the language of all the people, of each people of all of Haman's orders, to the king's satraps, the governors of the various provinces, and the nobles of the various peoples. They were written in the name of King Xerxes himself and sealed with his own ring. Dispatches were sent by couriers to all the king's provinces with the order to destroy, kill, and annihilate all the Jews, young and old, women and children, on a single day, the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar, and to plunder their goods. See, there we have our phrase, taking the money from the people. A copy of the text of the edict was to be issued as law in every province and made known to the people of every nationality so they would be ready for that day. And the couriers were sent out, spurred on by the king's command, and the edict was issued in the citadel of Susa. The king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city of Susa was bewildered. Now the edict is sent out. Haman gets his wish. The edict is sent out that it's okay to annihilate the Jews. And this we learn, according from a couple weeks ago, a Persian king's law cannot be undone. And as this goes out, it says that the city is in confusion, probably fear, terror. This decision now is going to upset all of society. Meanwhile, the king and Haman sit down for a drink. Everyone's confused and fearful. And Haman and the king are hiding inside for a little drink during happy hour. And this is really the move of Prejudice too, isn't it? To isolate yourself away from others. To drink and be with only those who are like-minded. You see, Pride and Prejudice hides from anything that would challenge its viewpoint. And so Haman and the king stay hidden together in the king's chamber, drinking, while everyone else is in confusion. Now, I wish that I could get Mordecai and Haman together, don't you? I wish I could get the two of them together and sit down for a drink. I'd like to get them together in a bar and buy them each a beer and say, fellas, let's sit down and talk this out for a little bit, you know? I mean, if I could just sit them down and get them talking about their disagreements here. I mean, maybe the more we drank, the better, the more open they'd be to some sort of reconciliation. I mean, if we could just sit these two down together, it might be a very different story. But instead of having those two sit down and dealing with actual problems, we've just got the king and Haman sitting together having a drink, hiding from the problems that they're creating. You know, you wonder, why is there still so much hate today? Well, it could be we see the roots of it right here in this story too. Because too often we just stay in our own bubble, avoiding people that we're different from. We find our echo chambers, we stick with the people that are like us, and we never leave them, and we end up not being around other people who experience life differently than we do. And because of that, we miss out on the connection with them and understanding who they are, and our hate is never addressed because we never get to know them as people, only as enemies. See, Haman may be a fictional character in a fictional ancient old story, but the spirit of Haman, well, it still exists today. And if you can get this far into Esther, once you reach the end of chapter 3, it might be a good time to ask the question, who is it that I've isolated myself from? You know, it could be an ethnic group. It is in this story. And maybe today too. You know, there's a big discussion about ethnic groups today, particularly immigrants in the United States. But how you think about immigrants and how you treat them could be different if you actually know some. If you've ever sat down with them, had a drink, and knew their stories. But it's not just that issue. It may not be just ethnicity. We isolate from all sorts of things. We end up opting out of being in conversation with people that are different than us. You may not have a lot of interaction with people of different religious persuasions than you. Maybe you don't have much contact with people who have different political views than you. Maybe there's some people in your life who've caused you hurt in the past, and you haven't spent much time being in their world and learning about the hurts that they might have as well. Now, sometimes I know we need space from these people, especially for mental health purposes, and that's valid, but it can easily also become an excuse to avoid them, never interact with them, and just simply be quite content with having a drink in the king's quarters. And it's that strategy that leads to the giant crisis in this story. And frankly, I think there's some relevance to our own story as well. That strategy may also be a part of our problem, because we have a crisis of polarization in our world, don't we? And I don't know how to solve it, but I know the gospel compels us to move beyond the tactics that we see in Esther chapter 3. I'm not sure in this chapter, maybe even in the whole book, whether Mordecai or Haman come out looking very well. But I know the gospel compels us to move beyond the actions of either of them, to move beyond pride and prejudice and work towards reconciliation. It's why Paul reminds us that sort of the mission of the cross, the message of Jesus, is one of reconciliation. Yes, with us and God, not that God needed to be much reconciled to us, but that we needed to be reconciled to God. But also it goes beyond the vertical relationship to the horizontal, that the cross is in large part us being reconciled to one another. Ephesians 2 verse 14, for he himself, that's Jesus, is our peace, who has made the two groups one and has destroyed the barrier, the dividing wall of hostility. By setting aside in his flesh the law with its commands and regulations, His purpose was to create in himself one new humanity out of the two, thus making peace. And in one body to reconcile both of them to God through the cross, by which he put to death their hostility. He came and preached peace to you who were far away, and peace to those who were near. For through him we both have access to the Father by one Spirit. See, reconciliation brings together those who were far and those who are near and sets them side by side. Jesus here is talking about Jew and Gentile relationships, and he's saying he has come in part to make reconciliation between them. That's really a part of our message as those of us who are followers of Jesus. And it's a big part of communion. Now, in our in-person gatherings each week, we come together and we take communion as a group. And we make lines down the center aisle. There's several lines, and you can come down and you can take the bread and you can take the cup. And you get in a line with a bunch of people as we sing, and you're invited to come down and take communion. But as you get in that line, you're lining up in front and behind and beside many different people. And some are like you, and some are not. Some voted like you, and some did not. But at the table, we come together. Communion is a symbol of a meal that places us together. And that's at the heart of what it means to be a follower of Christ. Haman, he drinks only with the king. But we're called to drink with one another too. Different viewpoints, but we come together around one cup. Now today in the online space, you may be on your own to take communion, but you should know you're a part of a group, and this group is messy, and it's not monolithic. We have different views on things. We have different ways of doing things. We're not all the same. But a part of who we are is willing to come around the same cup together, to learn from one another, to learn what it means to see life from the perspective of someone else. And of course, the cross then in communion becomes a great example of that, as we see God himself even willing to model that for us, that he became a human, that he saw life from our perspective. And so, of course, we are called to do the same. Now, we're going to go to communion today. A little video piece will play as we do that. You're welcome to let it play through. You can pause it if you need more time to reflect. You can take communion. And then on the other side of that, we'll finish out with some announcements. But let me pray for us as we go to communion. God, we come to you today. We're so thankful for the love that you have for us. We're thankful for old stories like this. Yes, they may be fictional, but somehow they were included in our Bible text because they do point us towards you. And today in this chapter, we've seen some things that are maybe good examples of bad examples, but they highlight for us how the way of you, Jesus, that your way is so counterintuitive to the things that we see in real life. We see plenty of chapter 3 playing out in our everyday life. But what we're praying for is the miracle of the cross, the miracle of reconciliation. And so as we take communion today, we're thankful for it, and we give you all the praise and the glory and the thanks for that. But we also are inspired by it, and we ask that the way that you have approached others, us and all humans, is a way that we would also approach others. We love you, and it's in your name we pray. Amen. All right, let's go to communion, and I'll see you afterwards for some announcements. All right, let's wrap up with a few announcements today. Some stuff that's going on. First of all, we do meet in person Sundays at 10 a.m. at the Zion Lutheran Church property. It's just south of downtown Everett. It's a really easy on-off the exit there on 41st Street, and we'd love to have you join us in person if you're ever able to do that at 10 a.m. on Sundays. It's a neat group of people, and I think you'd have a good time getting to know some of them there, and you're always welcome to join us Sundays at 10 a.m. If you're interested in staying up to date with things that are happening, a good way to do that is, of course, on the socials. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. We are at The Gathering Everett, and you can follow us along there for updates and information. If you're not on the socials all that much, but you still like the information, you can have it delivered to your inbox. You can sign up for our email newsletter, and if you don't already receive that, you can message us on Facebook with your name and your email address, or drop me a line there. My email's on the screen. If you want to take a little screenshot and then drop me a line, you can just send me your name and email address, and be happy to add you to our distribution list there as well. Now, next Sunday is going to be a little bit different for us. It is the holiday weekend. July 4th, I believe, is Friday, and so the 6th on Sunday, we know a lot of people will be out of town traveling, so we thought, this will be a fun time to get together with some other churches in our area and just combine up and do something together. We did this during the Lent season leading up to Easter. We did some partnership with some other churches, and we're going to be doing that again this Sunday. We're going to be meeting at our place, and at 10 a.m. we'll have our worship gathering like we normally do. It'll be a little shorter than normal, and it will have elements from some of the other churches as well. And it'll probably be a 30-minute, 45-minute little thing, and then we're going to go right out of that into a barbecue. We're going to have hamburgers and hot dogs and all the trimmings that you need for that available there, and drinks. And so if you want to join us, maybe just bring like a bag of chips or a side salad or something, potato salad, a dessert, those kind of extra side dishes, and we'll just have some fun hanging out together that day. Then also, if you want to give, you can do that online. You can go to our website at everettgathering.com/donate, and you can set up a one-time gift or a recurring gift there. If you are not watching this on your phone, I guess you could use the little QR code. It's kind of hard to use a QR code on the phone that you're watching a video, but otherwise, you could use the QR code as well, and you can make a donation that way if you would like to. Okay, we have other events that are coming up later this summer, but we'll clue you in on those next week. Hopefully you enjoy this week. I think it's supposed to be really brilliantly beautiful, and we'll pick up next week. You'll have the online content from this combined thing that we're doing. It'll post a little bit late, but it will be there, and then the following week after that, we'll pick up with Esther again. Okay, that's pretty much it. I hope you have a really good week. We'll see you next time. Bye!